So with that, I'm also going to introduce a colleague and good friend of mine. So multi-decade colleague, multi-decade friend, Mark Abraham, who is the author of a HBR book called Personalized Customer Strategy in the Age of AI. Mark also has, and predating the book and post the book, a very vibrant business with companies and with enterprises in personalization and all things marketing. In fact, he created and now leads our personalization practice within BCG. And he has collaborated with quite literally the enterprises that you think of as the early winners in personalization. He is also leads BCG's marketing, sales, and pricing practice in North America. So with that, Mark Abraham.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Great to be here today with you all. And I want you to reflect on a customer experience you've recently had. Let me tell you about one of mine. I was out for a run on a sunny day, and then this big angry dog jumps out from behind his fence and bites me in the leg. I fall, sprain my wrist, and then to make matters worse, I find out the dog's not up to date on his rabies shots. Okay, so off to the local urgent care I go, and I'd been there a few times before, so I figured they'd have my information on file and quickly admit me. Instead, I got this. The same, real picture by the way, the same form I'd filled out half a dozen times before. And then I had to do so with my busted wrist and wait and wait. This is infuriating, and how many times have you experienced something like this? There's the inaccurate, when I bought yoga pants for my sister over the holidays, and then I got bombarded with ads for women's clothes all over the internet. Or there's my friend Sanjeev. His dog died 6 months ago. He's still getting recommendations for his dog's favorite treats from his online marketplace. Hurtful. And then there's the, I don't want another one of this. I just want one that works. I bought a dishwasher last year. It arrived after 9 months of waiting, broken. So then I wait another 9 months, and I get hounded by 3 emails from the same company to get me to buy the same dishwasher. It's infuriating, but it doesn't have to be this way. As Christine said, I lead a team of over 1,000 folks around the world, and we help brands deliver better customer experiences. We call it true personalization. I've been geeking out about this for many years, so much so that I did write the book, Personalized. It's in your goodie bags, bright yellow jacket, you can't miss it. And I'm gonna give you a few of the cliff notes today, but more importantly, all the stories and learnings from consumers and brands. So at BCG, we think about true personalization, and we have to start with defining it, because frankly, personalization is an overused buzzword. What does it really mean? Well, customization is about tailoring products. So think of custom fabric for your sofa. But personalization is about tailoring experiences. True personalization is when you take an interaction you had with one customer and make their very next interaction better, faster, cheaper, more convenient. Okay, so that sounds simple, but in an age of data privacy concerns and everything we hear about that, do consumers really want personalization? Well, we asked 23,000 of them around the world, and the answer is a resounding yes. 80% of people around the world want and expect personalization. They're willing to give their personal data in exchange for, and this is the critical piece, a better experience. And the rates are as high as 96% in India. One thing that's concerning, though, is 2/3 of these same consumers also tell us they've recently had an experience where they cut off a relationship or unsubscribed from a brand that had an inappropriate personalized experience. Okay, so what does this mean for brands? Well, in order to truly measure personalization, we frankly had to come up with a way to quantify it. It's actually not that easy to measure personalization. So we did mystery shopping. We asked brands themselves. We looked under the hood for their tech stacks and the like. And we came up with the Personalization Index. It's the first measure of its kind, and it ranks and scores any brand in any industry on how well they're personalizing. So after scoring hundreds of brands, and we've been running this for a decade now, we found two really surprising things. Today, unlike 10 years ago, by the way, there are personalization leaders emerging in every industry. Not a lot of them, though. Only 10% of brands today qualify as personalization leaders, meaning they're in the top 10% of scores, above 75 on our index. But there are ones that stand out in every industry. And when we deep dive on these leaders, we see two things. Number one, personalization leaders drive growth. So in fact, personalization leaders grow 10 points faster than laggards. You do the math across industries, this means there's a $2 trillion prize up for grabs from both share gains as well as category growth across industries. So the prize is huge. But what can we take away from all the stories of these leaders? Well, my book is filled with them, so you can read all of them, and here's a few of the logos. But let me give you a few of the ones that stand out and bring to life what I call the playbook of personalization. Because across industries, across brands, we find that there's a common pattern of what personalization leaders do. I call it following and delivering on the promises of personalization. There's 5 simple things you need to do when you're personalizing to actually meet that expectation that customers have from you as a brand. Number 1, empower me. So let's dive into what brands are actually doing on each of these promises. Okay, so empower me means I'm actually thinking about why I'm personalizing for a customer. It's not just putting a name in an email or recommending this product because you bought that. It's deeply thinking about what problem are you trying to solve for customers. The simplest one, and this is one that can fund a journey for your business and create lots of value for your business as well as the customer, is simply providing better value. This is why one of the first places we started personalization at, where we built Starbucks' personalization engine with them, was a great way to bring personalization in the digital realm for a brand that had been known for doing that with their customers in the stores. But now you see grocery brands like a Tesco, Marks & Spencer, Kroger, and others also gamifying their personalized offers in their apps, in email, and other channels. In fact, when they do this, we consistently see across grocery, across restaurants, and other players, 3 to 5x the ROI versus when that same dollar is invested in mass offers. So win for the business, but also win for the customer. Because they're getting, instead of hundreds of coupons and big leaflets delivered to your home, just the right offers for you. So a simple use case that can deliver real value. But I think personalization needs to go further. And one way is to actually think about making the experience more seamless and convenient. So if you go to India, something extraordinary is happening over there. They call it quick commerce. Instead of Amazon same-day delivery, it's literally 10-minute delivery. So Swiggy is one of the unicorns that's actually worth $13 billion right now. And they have solved quick commerce through personalizing a few things. They have bodegas, little dark stores with a 1-mile radius delivery around them all throughout the country, thousands and thousands of locations, where they personalize based on customers in those areas. What might they want? They can only stock 1,000 SKUs, so they have to really think about what will these customers want? Everything from snacks to shampoo to clothes. And they stock exactly the right assortment in each store. Then they hand their drivers, or the bicycle riders, these personalized apps where they, in under 2 minutes, can find exactly the right SKU that you've ordered, up to 5 items, and then within 8 minutes, actually get it to you with the fastest most efficient route on their bicycle. So 10-minute delivery, incredible, seamless, quick, convenient experience. But I think personalization also needs to make our lives better. And a great example of this is Sondermind. They're a mental health app that scores you on 12 different brain functions. Things like, what's your level of anxiety? And then tailors a recommendation for you. For example, who's the right therapist to connect with, or what's a simple daily regimen for you to follow. In fact, they can take all this data and outcomes and help their therapists also come up with better treatment plans that have worked for other patients like them. It's a billion-dollar valuation company and a great example of how personalization is moving to the realm of improving outcomes. Okay, so now we've thought about what we want to do with personalization to help the customer. Now we need to line up everything that's needed to make it happen. And of course, you have to start with knowing the customer. So a great example of this is Voya. They're a benefits provider, essentially working with companies to help their employees make the right benefits choices. Everything from, do you sign up for more life insurance, or what health benefits and retirement benefits do you elect? And they realized they didn't really know their customers. And customers were incredibly confused in this opt-in time at the end of the year, navigating all their choices. So they decided to directly connect with consumers through what they call their My Voyage app. This app asked consumers what their goals were, things like financial goals, health goals, and the like for their family. And using this information, they now had the foundation to know me. As a result, they could make recommendations on what benefits to elect into, but just as importantly, what not to elect into. So even though they sold life insurance, they might tell you, you know what, your family's covered well for what you need. Don't elect into that higher benefit around life insurance. This earned trust from consumers and also allowed them to much more quickly innovate their offering in a way that was relevant to consumers. Satisfaction scores went up, and retention rates went up as well. Okay, so now we know the customer, we know what we're trying to do with personalization. Now we need to do the difficult bit of actually reaching them in the right channel at the right time with the right message. A great example of this is what Uber does, not just with your rides, but actually everything around that. So they've looked at every surface of interaction they have with the consumer and figured out how to make it more relevant for you. When you pull up the app and you're ordering a ride, let's say after landing in Greece, they might show you in the flow of the app a relevant ad for what you might want to explore in Athens, maybe a great restaurant to go to. When you're looking and driving in the car, they might have displays. You may have noticed that in the back seat. On that, they can, for example, display a refreshing beverage you might want to pick up after watching the US Open match on a hot day. It's highly contextualized down to knowing the customer and also meeting them where they're at in a very relevant way, which makes the ads seem much more like personal recommendations than ads. But it's also helped Uber build $1 billion advertising business. And the same we're seeing play out across many retailers. So behind that, of course, is a lot of AI to actually serve up the right content to customers. But to feed the AI, you need the personalized content. And this is where brands are really leveraging Gen AI and dynamic content in new ways. One early company to innovate in this regard was Pandora. So they're one of the largest jewelry brands in the world. They sell charm bracelets. And about 5 years ago, they really faced a period of slowing growth. In a mature category, people had bought a lot of charms already. How do you keep growing? Well, it's through inspiration and personalized content. They rethought their entire content creation journey. They knew that they still had to create these amazing visual ads for the holidays with their traditional photo shoots and creative process, but they also had to get much more personalized when they were talking to gifters and featuring specific new products and talking to different personas in digital marketing channels or on the website. So they set up, they're based in Denmark, a whole new group over in LA that was about creating dynamic content and creating much more personalized content for all these specific lower funnel conversion channels. When they had this agile team, they were also then able to augment them with Gen AI tools as those came out over the last couple of years. So it's been a key enabler of their turnaround, return to growth, their Phoenix plan, as they call it, and it's really driven their content engine. So the last piece, now that you have the content, the AI, the data about customers, is actually back to the people. And it's one thing to personalize once. The key is to build advantage, you need to make that next interaction better, which could be tomorrow, it could be a year from now. But the cycle of learning is really important. And so the way companies compete right now is on that cycle time. An example from the financial services industry that's quite typical is this credit card company. They had a 12 to 16 week cycle to create a campaign. All the regulatory approvals, the handoffs between the agency and the creative team made it an incredibly laborious process with 50 people touching the ad and 15 handoffs between them. So what they did was look at each step of the process. And yes, they leveraged technology. They automated things like the customer list polls and the ad copy creation, for example. But they also used process improvements. Less handoffs, less people involved. And you see in the chart, the two levers actually were equally important in terms of taking that 12 to 16 week cycle time down to just a couple of weeks. Okay, so now we know the 5 promises. Let's put it all together. A company that's really done this, in my view, comes from Asia Pacific. It's a major airline over there. And they started on this journey of personalization. When you think about travel, there's a lot of steps in that journey where personalization come into play. So they were frankly overwhelmed by all the teams trying to solve this. One of the key things they did is map out that journey and really think about what are the first and most important moments to win with the customer. They picked 3. That inspiration moment, for example, engaging you on that right next travel journey and inspiring you. The moment of truth on the trip itself. If you've ever experienced a flight disruption, a lost bag, a delayed flight, you know that's what's going to shape your satisfaction and relationship with the airline more than any other. And then after the trip, they needed to engage these customers with other products and experiences as well to create a long-term relationship. So they picked those 3 moments and they mapped out what they were doing today. It was actually quite sophisticated. They had 50 product lines, and on the left over here, you see how each of their product line teams were figuring out for their content, which could be anything from advertising a flight destination to sending an email about that co-branded credit card offer to the travel insurance product they had, and many more. They had 50 different teams targeting these customers in a very sophisticated data-driven way, by the way, because they have plenty of customer data. But when you put it all together, it meant that their top customers, who are high propensity, high value for everything, were getting bombarded with messages, 10 emails a week, wasted ads online, and not cohesive experiences on the website, while the bottom engagement customers were not getting anything. So they flipped the model on its head to really take a next best conversation approach. They started with, what are our marketing objectives? What are our brand guardrails and customer objectives? And then, what are all the things we could be talking about? It is that flight destination. It's that trigger. If you lost your bag, here's how to get it, and we have your back. It's going to arrive on time. To also that credit card offer. Put it all in a bank and a library of offers, and then think through, and this is where leveraging AI became critical, what is the next best conversation for each customer? So their personalization engine actually scored every customer, every hour, on what was the best conversation to have with them. And by the way, what triggered messages should override everything. Let's say if you were in a flight disruption moment, we don't want to be talking about our co-branded credit card with you. We want to solve your problem. The engine ranked all these and also decided which channels were best to communicate. So it's really a great example of bringing AI to curating the customer conversation. In fact, they ended up sending 30% less emails. They used personalization in places they had never done before, like even the homepage of the website, or what the lounge rep would say to you when you checked in at the lounge, and curated exactly what was said. They also then, actually paradoxically, were able to open up more creativity and innovation when it came to the content of that communication. And this is where they use Gen AI. They actually filled that content library by 40x more content. They could think through things like persona-based messaging and creative. If you're flying to Hong Kong, I'm going to talk to you very differently if you're a weekend warrior versus a family of four. And with the right brand voice, guardrails, appropriate tone guardrails, they were able to create massive amounts more content to load into that content engine, because now they had a way to curate that content and make sure that customers only got what was relevant. Just as importantly was thinking through how the organization needed to change. They still actually made sure that those that knew the products best were able to create the content. And they kept the actual content strategy, the customer strategy itself in the hands of the businesses. But what they centralized and they built a customer view around was the actual personalization engine, the execution engine, and the measurement, where automation and that customer-first view was paramount. So a huge change in the organization itself, and the results speak for themselves. Not only did they reduce the volume of spam and messages to their customers, they also, as a result, both made engagement much higher, over doubling in their engagement scores, click-through rates, and the like, and the business one. Overall, 10% increase in cross-sell and profits. Now, the interesting thing was it wasn't even by category. Some categories were blasting customers too much, and we reduced their communication. Maybe sales didn't increase as much or even went down slightly in some categories, but the customer overall was more satisfied. Other categories had been massively suppressed and not talked about enough, and they were huge drivers of this growth. So having that enterprise view and testing out what was going to happen was critical to winning over the business and driving the change. So that's a snapshot of where brands are today. Let me end with where we're going next. And I'm super excited about, and this is the last chapter of my book that's, frankly, is now 6 months old. It's already coming to fruition, and we're moving really quickly here. But I predict 3 things. Number 1, we're going to move more from pull personalization, which even that airline example was the airline still curating what they're going to send to customers. I think we're going to be in an age of customers actually choosing. Virtual assistants are the gateway to this new experience, and we're putting personalization in the hands of customers themselves. But to do this, we need to think not about individual products or companies. We need to think about ecosystems that solve entire end-to-end customer problems. And I'll give some examples of this. And then lastly, we are automating marketing workflows and shortening that cycle time that I described earlier from even weeks down to hours. So let me bring this to life. This is an experience that you can have today, and many of you probably have done in ChatGPT. I'm flying to Barcelona in a few weeks, so I can ask, whether it's ChatGPT or a tool like Romy, give me some recommendations, show me where I should go, accommodations, food, and so on. And that's super simple. It already exists today. You can even get into things like, what should I pack? Give me a packing list for my trip. And by the way, tailor exactly what that I'll do. So That's there and relevant. I think where it's already going to, though, is then going a step further, integrating what I call conversational commerce into the journey. So maybe on that list, I'm only 2 days away from my trip, and I realize I don't have a sun hat to take to Barcelona. Help me find it. Great, it can already do that. It can give you a list of sun hats. It'll even price compare those sun hats. It'll even give you the stores that you can buy it from. And I think where we're moving next is actually integrating that closed loop in terms of completing that transaction into the journey. In fact, some of my CPG clients tell me in 3 years, they're preparing for a world where a third of their marketing spend will be spent marketing to agents like this, actually thinking through how to make their products relevant versus living in a search-based world. So putting personalization in the hands of customers. And this already basically exists today. And companies are announcing ways that they're going to take this to the next level. So if you think about that travel journey, Delta announced at CES just this January their vision for concierge. And it's an ecosystem built around partnerships. It's not just Delta solving your travel journey. It's Delta partnering with Joby to take a flying rideshare to the airport if you're running late. It's Delta partnering with YouTube to give you exclusive content in the Delta app or on your screen that you can only get access to on a Delta flight. It's Delta partnering with Uber so that from the app, it already summons your car to be there right at the moment you walk out the door. How do you create a seamless experience that solves the travel journey instead of just selling your product? I think this is what we're moving to in everything from cooking to dining out to healthcare to financial services. And you see other examples, whether it's L'Oreal Beauty Genius or Erica in banking from Bank of America, that are moving in this direction. And I think partnerships will take them a step further. And finally, what I'm most excited about now is what the much used buzzword of agentic AI can mean for the last piece around Delight Me and this speed of the improvement of the customer experience. So I think we are in a world where we are able to take every step of this marketing workflow around insights and trend detection to what is that brief I have for the action to take, to what is the audience I want to speak to and how do I find them, to actually how do I create the campaign, approve it, and get it out the door. And each of these steps can be automated and democratized and put in hands of a marketer, technologist, insights guru. And this is, I think, the future we're going to. So let me bring this to life with a short video, and then I'll wrap with a few minutes for questions.
Emily, a brand manager for a major beverage company, receives a notification of a surge in social mentions. She wants to identify the trend and dive into key insights, whether it's social media buzz, a trending influencer, or external market factors. She launches the conversational AI-powered assistant, exploring real-time analytics and information. The surge seems to be related to the new product, Better Beverage, which is being mentioned across TikTok and Instagram. Engagement Hub recommends tailored actions, such as launching a targeted campaign, adjusting inventory, or optimizing promotions in real time, and passing the action to specialized agents. With customizable dashboards, automated alerts, and predictive insights, teams can make data-driven decisions that enhance customer relationships and maximize business impact. From opportunity scanning to advanced segmentation and targeted outreach, Engagement Hub empowers brands to build deeper, more meaningful relationships with their customers.
So I think we're living in a world where we're democratizing insights and putting them in the hands of the teams that are able to act on them. I think it's a super exciting future and one where we can deliver on these 5 promises of personalization, starting with Empower Me in an entirely different way. Thank you. Check out my book and happy to connect. I think we have a couple of minutes for 1 or 2 questions. I think we have a mic.
Hey.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, I've got one back here.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I love the chart near the beginning of the presentation that showed the 10 times growth rate. I'm curious, what does that look like in terms of ROI? So in other words, these companies that are really
Yes.
excelling, how much are they investing and do they have a sense of ROI for this type of personalization?
Yes, great question. And I would say two things. One is investments are significant, especially when you put together marketing technology, content, and people investments, which I would say a third, a third, a third across those buckets is very typical. For a large enterprise in the billion-dollar plus range, it may run in the $10 million plus per year investment range. And it depends on industry and level of sophistication. But what we are seeing that's encouraging, because I would say it's also inviting a lot of skepticism about personalization for investments that have been made that didn't pay off, is that you can make the journey self-funding. And I think this is why it's so critical to think and start with Empower Me and what are the use cases that you're going to focus on. And for example, I gave the early example of the personalized offers or other ways to drive value so that you're actually paying for those investments. If you do that, we consistently find you can make the journey self-funding. So there are quick wins in year one with basically you have to think about it as current tech, low tech investment, and then transformational tech investments. And in year one, start with the low tech. What can I do now? It's typically better targeting with the current tools I have. It's better insights, better focus, stopping some of those initiatives like the airline example said. And with that focus, we find that it's typically a self-funding journey. And then in terms of the growth that you can see, that 10% for the customers where you have data and that digital customer relationship is what's possible in year 3 of the journey. So put that together, you see between 5 to 10x returns on these programs for the personalization leaders. And Netflix, Uber, others have been quite public with those returns. But it's actually really hard to replicate for many organizations. Yeah, perfect.
Good morning. I was impressed with the chart you had that talked about personalization by country.
Yep.
And it seemed that the larger the population, the greater the desire for personalization. I don't know if that's a true correlation, but I wondered if you saw something like that.
I think one piece that drives it, it was fascinating being over in India earlier this year, for example, is how customers experience personalization in that country. I think it's no coincidence that India is the highest given their investment in digital identity, payments, which are entirely digital. If you go to a bodega in India, you can pay with your phone. And all of that data is, because of the different privacy laws in both India and China, much more freely able to be integrated into that customer experience. And there haven't been as visible scandals around companies with data leaks or significant breaches of that confidence. And that's why, by the way, I think Australia is at the bottom because of some of the recent issues they've faced. So I think this is much more a reflection of the trust that brands actually have with customers than anything else. Thank you.